I was here 4 decades, and I wanted to give you a little vignette of each decade for you to remember, like this was important. And in each decade, I wanted to give you a shadow. Now, most people here in this room don't get shadow, because that's a Jungian concept, and we think like Jung is like a jerk. So, let me tell you, Jungian concept means that thing that you miss while you're reaching for the victory that you gain. And you miss this other little part. So in the 1973s, I came in 1973 as a founding member. In the decade of the 73s, I think the main thing that was happening was accreditation. Now you would say, yeah, and I would say, hey, we started completely against, totally against university-based programs. How can we apply for accreditation for those programs that we started against? And the answer was, definitely. Definitely. Because you wanted to be sure that you met the accreditation standards, because the only thing worse than not being accredited was trying to be accredited and not being accredited. So we tried to be accredited, and we were accredited. And that was a victory, both when we achieved regional accreditation, and as Marie pointed out, when we achieved APA accreditation. But here's the shift. If you achieve accreditation, watch out. Because you're likely to be sold out to accreditation. You're likely to think that the accreditors have the scoop on what you should be. But they don't have the scoop on what you should be. You have the scoop on what you should be. And you want to be sure that you meet their standards, but you keep the scoop on who you should be. And I noticed that that's something that we lose in our affairs. That sense that we have a right to determine what we think we should be within the standards. In the 1983s, as Bree pointed out again, CSPP, I think how I would describe the 1983s is that CSPP found our own campus, found our own place in the world. We found our own place in the world. And we found our own little place called Marina Village that we could become the school of. The village already had everything else, but it didn't have a school. So I went to the head of the village and I said, how about a school? And he said, great, we'll give you the price for half price if you become a school here. So we got the price. So that was good, and we had our own place. We had 200 dedicated parking places and another 100 within 10 seconds away. And we had a beautiful place and a lot of stuff that we did to make it beautiful and Esther did to make it beautiful. But here's the problem. Here was the shadow. It wasn't our place. We thought we owned the place. We had sold the building in Berkeley to buy the place, to get the place in Alameda. But you know what? We didn't own the place that was sold in Berkeley. The president owned the place. And he reminded us, hey, you don't own that place. Well, you know, it's not a good idea to not realize your situation. So, in reaching for that place, we really forgot the truth of the matter about our situation, which is that we didn't own the building. It only seemed like we owned the building. And guess what? When some other president wanted to move us from our great home in Alameda to San Francisco, she just up and moved us. So it's a good idea to know the truth about you and not to lose the truth in your people. And the third time was the 93s. And I would say that's the decade that CSPP goes national. We'd gone national before that because we were part of the NCSPP, and we actually had found the National Council of Schools of Professional Psychology, of which there are now 63 professional schools. And we were one of the very first professional schools. But we went national in the 90s for a couple of reasons. First of all, we got a kind of national reputation. And people came around and said, can we consult with you about establishing a professional school? And we said yes. And I even went to APA for 18 months as a consultant. And I went there as a consultant to figure out what to do nationally with regard to the Clinton health plan. Well, guess what? Here's the shadow side. There was no Clinton health plan. So there I am in Washington without a Clinton health plan trying to instigate the Clinton health plan. And guess what? We did a lot of good work, like we established the first program at CSPP, still the best program at CSPP in psychopharmacology. But it wasn't what we wanted in that original thing, and we blinded ourselves to what we wanted because we were reaching for the victory. A little bit blind. And so then in 2003, what happened? Well, then I say that's the time where CSBP becomes part of the university. And that's the era, of course, of moving to San Francisco and Jeff Cox becoming president. And I don't know, we've learned how to become a university, sort of, the CSBP. Like, you know, I just had a talk tonight with some alumni who knew somebody who was coming to the school. Like, is it CSBP or is it Alliance? I think we got a branding problem. If we have a branding problem, we have an identity problem. And if we have an identity problem, that's a shadow problem. Because you're really only going to be as good as your identity, as who you know how you are. So how we can become part of CSBP and part of Alliance and part of this university that we are trying to love. So I think that's about all I want to say. I just wanted to come back to one thing, and that is my own experience. I loved a lot. I loved being in charge. I loved talking. I loved my colleagues. But what I loved the most was my contact with students. And whether it was in a classroom or in an open house when I first met you, or meeting you in the hallway and saying, you know, I'm interested in, I hear you're interested in this, and why don't you come to my office, we'll talk some more, and I'll give you a book or whatever it was, whatever it was, that contact with students was sacred for me. That was sacred.